I actually do feel like a little bit relieved, not realizing that like it doesn't seem as terrible of a dream anymore.
Welcome, Dreamer.
Oh, thank you.
I am delighted that you have come and joined me here on the channel and that you have a dream to work and some other questions to ask about dreams and dreaming. And very excited to work with you today. So, just tell us a couple of things about yourself.
A couple things about myself. Well, I think the first thing to cover is that I do fall under the neurodivergent category, and my special interest is very much animals. Animals are my life, they're my career, they're my like everything. Wild animals, the whole thing. Obviously, like I had met you through a grief community, and that grief community, essentially, I was a part of it because of losing my beloved soul dog, if you will. His name is Lamb, and he's gonna come up a little bit in this, so I guess I should introduce him as well. What else can I say for myself? Animals are really the tune of everything that I do. I've worked in very like a whole bunch of different fields. I'm currently trying to get my one animal to be quiet behind me. I'll introduce her. Everybody knows what's making the noise. This is Apple. Um,
Apple is precious.
Oh, she's a very special girl. Yeah, in the center of her world. The anxious affection she gives. Yeah. So right now I'm working at a wildlife rehab, but I do find that sometimes my dreams kind of relate to that. I also find sometimes my dreams, they tend, especially in my adult life, to have a pretty like nightmarish tone to them. I don't always dream a whole lot, but when I do, they're not often great. I used to dream, like I used to have like fun dreams and stuff like as a kid, and it definitely kind of changed as my mental health did as well. But yeah, I think that kind of covers my intro.
Okay.
All right.
So, without any further delay, please tell me your dream.
So the specific one that I'm going to talk to you about is pertaining to my grief journey. And so essentially like I should kind of like preface this by like explaining that I got my pug, Lamb. He was when I was 16 years old. He became like my whole world, my pivotal everything. And I lost him on March 1st of this past year. It was like the biggest, most devastating loss that I've ever had, and it came after 2 years of cancer treatment. He was initially given only a couple months, and he made it to almost 2 years, which is pretty incredible. But like, I wouldn't say that like I was like pretty like emotionally upheaving. And when I did it, and like we went through the process of euthanasia with him, we did like the at-home euthanasia, and the whole like I mean, it's a pretty traumatizing like process, and there was like a lot of decisions that had to be made, a lot of money that had to be spent in order to like kind of like fulfill those wishes and stuff like that. And so the dream all pertains to like that. Essentially, the dream itself is pretty short in nature. It was just me and my mom in my apartment, and I got a phone call. And the phone was from, they're called Heart with Wings, which was the organization that had done the at-home euthanasia. And they had called me, and I remember in the dream being confused because, like, he had been, we said goodbye on March 1st, but this dream happened in, like, the middle of October. And so I remember in the dream being, like, confused by why the, like, Hearts with Wing people were calling me because we had already picked up all of our stuff, whatever. And so I answered the phone and they said, "You're ready. Are you ready to come pick him up?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, I've already got everything." And they were like, "Well, you got like the scientific advancement package." And like, I remember in like my grief process being like, obviously, like I was in the thick of it when we were deciding things for him. But there was like a lot of packages and like a lot of like fees that came with those packages. And a lot of them became kind of confusing towards the end. And so when they had said like you had got like the scientific advancement package, I was like, "What do you mean?" And they were like, "Well, essentially like if you know, we've progressed enough, our sciences have progressed enough, we like have kept enough of his DNA and like we've brought him back. And I was like, what do you mean we've brought him back? And it wasn't like a yay, I'm gonna get to see him again. It was like it came with like a huge amount of anxiety because of like I mean, like the last thing I had to do was I had to like, you know, kind of give him a good death, right? And in that dream, like the biggest fear was just like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to do it all over again. And so we went and we picked him up, and like when we picked him up, it wasn't him. It was like a zombie him. Like zombie is kind of like lack of a good word, and it wasn't like walking around. Like it wasn't my dog. It was like something else, something other. And I was like so stressed out. And then in that moment, like often when I'm in like a pivotal, like, oh my goodness, in my nightmares, I'm able to be like, this is a dream and you can end it. And so I did. I was like, this is a dream. Like this is not real. And I ended it. But yeah. That's the dream.
Wow. Wow. So I will tell you that I understand this whole thing very well because we did it too in November with a beloved 14-year-old Italian Greyhound that I think about every day. So I know this feeling of the decisions, making the call. Here come the people to the house. It's very, very difficult. So, yeah. Okay. All right. So, let me ask this dreamer, like in telling the dream right this minute, right
Mhm.
here in the here and now, how are you feeling? I mean, to talk about something that is so sad, so hard. How
I
are you
think
feeling right
I'm
now?
feeling, I think because we're recording this, I don't really want to cry. So I had talked about like before like doing this meeting, I had like obviously I told my boyfriend about what I was doing, and he was like he kind of rolled his eyes and he was like, what type of dream would you want to have analyzed? And then I told him that dream, and then he kind of made a look at me and was like, I get why you'd want that analyzed. So like how do I feel about it? Like I feel jealous of the people who have gotten to have visitations in their dream. I'm like envious
Mm,
of people like because I haven't been able to like visually connect with him in the way that other people have. Um
yeah.
and so there's kind of like a jealousy element
Hmm.
to that.
Hmm.
There's also just like kind of just like sadness and disappointment in myself. I'm like, why did my psyche have to do that? That wasn't fun. Like,
Ah,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah. So we just kind of like to note that.
I remember when I initially had the dream, I was very stressed about it. It was very,
Okay.
because it brings back that like the
Yeah.
decision-making process. And like in that moment when I woke up, it felt like I was going to have to make that call again.
Yeah.
And that was really
Yeah.
the worst thing.
So this dog was a pug.
Yes.
Okay. And what was his name?
His name was Lamb.
Lamb,
Yeah.
like Baba Lamb.
Like my Lammy Lamb. Believe it or not, okay, so his name was Lammy. Initially, it got shortened to Lamb over the course of his life because I started doing more things in the animal field, and everybody liked it more, so that was it.
Yeah.
But it was not named after a ba lamb. It was
Hmm.
Lammy the lamprey eel. Because he used to, when he was a
Oh,
baby, he would like grab on to our dog, like by them, like we used to have this like long-haired collie. And so Lamb would like literally like grab onto his wispy collie fur behind his leg and just like not let go. And so we just started calling him Lammy the lamprey, and he started responding to that.
and Lamb is a pug.
Yes.
And so you told us just now a little bit about him in that he would follow the other dog around and try to nibble at his wispy fur.
When
But
he was,
tell,
yeah,
yeah,
when he was a baby, he did a lot of that. But
yeah. And how long did you get to have him?
I had him for just over. just over 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And I got him when I was 16. He died when I was 29.
Hmm.
And when I got him, he was like my pug. It wasn't really like my parents didn't adopt him. I adopted
Uh-huh.
him. He came to college with me, all of that.
So this lamb, this dog, lamb, accompanied you through an important season of formation in your
Yes,
life,
very much so.
of moving out of childhood and into adulthood,
Yeah.
which is significant.
Yeah.
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 Okay. And so you were 29 when he died.
Yeah. He's always
Okay.
been he always was my like rock, my ground beneath my feet, my baby, best friend. Kudos to my grief therapy because I'm getting all of these out without tears right now. I'm very impressed with myself.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You said he was your rock, your baby, the ground beneath your feet, and what else? What was the other thing you said?
My baby and my best friend.
Best friend.
Yeah.
And tell me about his unique personality, because even though certain breeds have a personality, each individual dog absolutely has a
Mhm.
personality.
Oh,
So,
100%. So he, like the best example I can give of his personality was the day that I got him. Like I wanted the biggest pug because I knew that I had a lot of animals in my house and I didn't want like a little wispy dog to get pushed around. So I got the one who was like, the big guy in the litter. And the first time I saw him, he knocked all of his siblings out of the way to get to me first. And I picked him up and I brought him home with me. And that was like a very good example of like his personality. Like we were always like very connected. He was always like top of the dog pile though. I worked at dog daycares for a time and he was my little yes man. So like if disagreement were happening in the dog daycare between dogs, I'd tell the dogs to like pipe down and then he'd be like right in the middle of it being like, "Yeah, you listen to my mom." He also too like he was tolerant of everybody. He'd, like obviously like let people pet him, but the people that like I didn't like, he knew. And like he would let them know like I have an uncle that I don't get along with and man that uncle would be like just on the side of the property and he would tell him exactly what was what. He was a party dog too. Like I took him to college with me, so I was like at that point in my life the only person who had a dog, and so he was kind of like the center of every party. When I worked at daycare, I remember working with a lot of people who weren't necessarily like big pug fans, but then they met him and like he stole their star. He main character energy, really, with this dog.
main character.
Yeah, main character energy. Wouldn't put up with anything he didn't like. Like he was really good with his boundaries, which I've never been. So that's
Ooh. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And
And
and as long as I was there, he was happy to go anywhere with me. He could do public transit, he could do like he'd go on the subway, no problem. Just didn't love escalators, which is fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Okay. Little wonder that this dog was and is still so important to you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a remarkable dog. Now, this was Lamb. Pugs in general, is there anything to add about pugs in general?
Pugs were my favorite when I was a kid. I think I've always rooted for the underdog, and my mom I remember she used to look at them and be like, "Oh, they're so ugly." And I was like, "No, they're the cutest thing." So my first email address was Pugsy1. Everything was like a pug, everything was about a pug. And so when I finally got my first high school job and I had my first little bit of money, I wanted to invest in my happiness. And it was a pug. I wrote an essay to my parents. It was kind of a threat, I think. It wasn't necessarily the nicest way. It was a good essay, essentially about why they should let me buy myself a pug. Might or might not have threatened teen pregnancy on them, and they were like, "Oh, all seems like very legitimate reasons to let her get a pug." Um, Believe it or not, the fight with my parents, I thought it was going to be really hard with them, and like I wrote them an essay, and my mom said, "All right, let's do it then." Um,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, nicely done. So, you know, at one level, of course, this is still a grief dream.
Yes.
Yeah, at one level, this is still a grief dream that is kind of replaying, what happened.
Mm.
And a little, I mean, not exactly, obviously, but a little bit, it brings back to mind sort of how his actual death unfolded. And so at one level, grief dreams are our own psyche's way of trying to make sense of what has happened, because the loss is profound and it takes a while. I mean, we have we understand, of course, yes, this has happened. But deep down, it takes a while for all the layers of the psyche to come to terms with this loss, with the fact that he is not in our world for you to pet, to hold, to kiss, to sleep with. However, he still lives in your psyche. And
Mhm.
so the dream is a way of sort of, processing that. Now, so I want to say that, and it's not unusual for people to dream something like this about their pets or about a human loved one.
Mhm.
We revisit the whole business, and in the dream something different happens. But it's a way that the psyche is trying to process this. So there's a couple of things I want to say about dogs in our lives and then in our dreams. And dogs in our dreams, or dogs in our lives, certainly carry a piece of ourselves with them. In other words, we sort of see our aspects of ourself in them. You
Mhm.
know, I'm thinking about what you said about that you always pull for the underdog. He was, the smallest in the bunch, but they're stout, those little pugs. They're
Mhm.
stout little fellas. And their personality, or at least the ones I know, their personalities are such that I can take care of myself. Just,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And so, there's a reason why we get so attracted to a particular breed of dog.
Mhm.
There's something about their characteristics and their temperament and what have you, and that says something about ourselves. So if I were to ask you that question, how is any of this like you? What would you say?
I think the like rooting for the underdog, I see a lot of that in myself. I also too like I don't like to say that I have main character energy, but I know people tell me I have main character energy.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I can like I'm not capable of being quiet. I have a very loud booming voice and I do a lot of public speaking.
Okay.
With one of my jobs. So I guess in that sense, like I do have main character energy. When he was a party dog, I was a party person. I'm definitely like I'm not anymore, but he like very much alluded that. Yeah. I think
Okay.
those are the main things, I'd say.
Okay. And so a really interesting question then becomes, in what way are you not like this? In what way are you not like some of these? You
Uh
mentioned
the
he's got bound.
boundaries. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got boundaries. I really struggle with those.
Okay.
I mean, losing him in itself was a very ungrounding experience. So I feel like the rock baby grounding beneath my feet, all of those things, like I can't really like pull them from myself
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so in
Now,
that,
here's an interesting question. Are you able to be your own best friend?
I don't think I've been able to, no.
Okay. So that's an idea.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. You said he really picked up fast on who you didn't like or were
Mhm.
wary of.
I'm not
Do
aware of that. No, no.
You don't have a good radar for
No,
for
I
folks?
haven't really like I have a kind of funny anecdote about that where when I was in my like dating years, I mean every intimate partner who has met me has also subsequently met my dog. And Lamb had a lot of opinions about the people who
Uh,
I would bring home.
uh-huh.
And there was one boy, I just wanted attention. I didn't really like him a whole lot. And he showed up and Lamb really didn't like him to the point where like he peed all over the guy's clothes.
Good dog.
Oh, he was a great dog. He was a great dog, and like he did it, and like oh man, he was such, and it was so funny too. Like this poor guy, he was like, oh my goodness, like your dog's peed on my clothes, and I just like I laughed so hard. Oh, I probably like his recount of the story is probably awful, but on my end of things, it was yeah. He has definitely been like more aware of the good and the bad in my life, I guess.
Oh, wow. So that is interesting. Okay. So we're digging deep on Lamb himself, but I want to say a word or two about dogs in general. Dogs, uh, human beings have had dogs around since prehistory. Dogs and humans have evolved together to have a beneficial relationship for both,
Okay.
right? And so dogs are universal. Their dogs and humans have lived together around the world and through time. And therefore, dogs are archetypes. And an archetype is a basic pattern of human behavior. So a dog represents kind of the totality of dogs and humans. And so we understand the universality of dogs and their relationship to humans as filling all sorts of roles, with companion being relatively recent. But far
Mhm.
back in history, they were guard dogs, they were working dogs, they were, shepherd dogs. They help people hunt, they help, so dogs have, served mankind, and mankind in turn have taken care of dogs
Mhm.
for millennia. Okay, so that's how far back dogs go. But their dogs in general have some basic characteristics that we recognize. And I was wondering if you, off the top of your head, could say what some of those are. Like dogs, dogs are what?
They're loyal. They're loyal to a
Right.
T. They're honest. They're they're kind. There's always like like they don't like as long as you know the circumstance that they're in, they're never gonna do anything that like throws you out of left field. Um,
Hmm.
so like they're like at least for me, they're easy to read, where I don't necessarily see that with people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say those are the main ones.
Okay. All right. May I add one?
Yes.
Dogs, especially our companion dogs, offer us unconditional love.
Yes.
Would you go with that?
Yes.
Oh,
100%.
yeah. Yeah.
Think he's like he was the only thing that ever offered me that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I got him, that was definitely something that I was like lacking.
All right. Now to the next thing. You work with mom. What about
Yes.
mom?
Mom's always in my dreams.
Mom's always in your dreams? Okay.
Mom's in a lot of my pivotal dreams. Not always like my violent dreams, but the ones that aren't violent, the ones where I have to like handle something. She's often
Uh-huh.
in them. She's sometimes like a voice of like disappointment, or not necessarily a voice of disappointment, but like a voice of like or like it means that like what I'm like what's going to happen is going to be watched by my mother regardless of like most of the time it's positive, most of
Okay.
most of the time it's supportive. In the circumstance with Lamb, it was definitely supportive
Oh,
because she was a very big part of his cancer treatment process. She helped fund for substantial proportion of it. She was like, "Yeah, you're not giving me grandkids, you're giving me dogs." So she was
Yeah.
very much part of that process. So I'm not surprised that she was there.
Okay. And, as you feel comfortable, can you just tell us like three things about mom? Just three descriptive words. Mom's what?
Mom is very caring. Mom does not like conflict, and mom can be reactionary.
And she can be what?
Reactionary. Like
Oh,
quick,
right. Okay.
like get that from her.
Oh, you do? That's what the next thing I was going to ask. Where are you like this?
I am caring, and I can be reactionary, but I think I understand that conflict is necessary for progress sometimes, and I
Okay.
think, yeah.
So, and when you say reactionary, can you say what that means?
I think especially in like the last few years as I've started to get older, we've kind of like, like the playing field starts to like level out as you start to age and you start to realize that like your parents are people just like you. And so like over the last few years, my mom has been dealing with like menopausal symptoms. And
Mhm.
so sometimes she will be very quick to react. Sometimes it's in like driving situations. Sometimes it's just like you make a joke and she takes it the wrong way,
Okay.
which is like a little bit jarring throughout my life she's always like not liked conflict. I think the quick to react thing is sometimes very like surprising.
Okay.
And
All
very,
right. Now, when moms show up in our dreams, sometimes it has to do with, our relationship with our mom, but sometimes it has to do with that we have incorporated the voice of mom in our own psyche,
okay.
and
Yeah.
it's sometimes it doesn't always correspond exactly with the mom that's walking around out here on the earth. It's sort of
Mhm.
our inner mom,
Okay. Yeah.
so to speak, our inner mom. Yeah. So one of the jobs of moms in general has to do with relating. Moms teach us how to relate. Moms offer us nurturing and relationship and relating, but moms also teach us how to take care of ourselves in our personal life. Our go to bed on time, take your vitamins, darling.
Yeah.
Wear a coat. It's cold outside. Go to bed on time. Take care of yourself. That gets incorporated in our own psyche if we are practicing good self-care, right? Mom
Okay. Yeah.
comes to do that. In this dream, was she doing anything or was she there as the support?
I think she was just there as a support. She was
Okay.
just there witness.
Okay. Okay. Supportive. And did you say witness?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I find sometimes like, well, when I was dealing with like, because Lamb's cancer treatment was so emotional for me, having her there like for the appointments, just to be like a second set of ears too, because sometimes like, the vet would say something and I wouldn't necessarily hear it the right way, or
Yes.
I'd be like, oh, did I wouldn't necessarily think about it, but then I'd think about it after the appointment. So I think it was just like, I think, and especially because she was there for like the euthanasia and stuff as well. So
Yeah.
like it made sense why she was there. Um,
Yes. Yeah. In the dream, you mean it made
yeah,
sense that she
yeah,
was there because she was a part of that whole
yeah,
process.
yeah,
Okay. 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 Here comes the phone call.
yeah.
All right. This is really interesting. And the name of the place was Heart
Heart,
with
hearts with
Wings.
wings.
Hearts with Wings.
Yeah,
Okay.
it came up on my phone.
Okay. Um, I am always so interested when we get a phone call in our dream.
Yeah, I get weird texts too sometimes, but
Oh, do you? Do you
that's
get
for that's
text?
later. We'll talk about that.
get text in your dreams as well. All right,
Yeah,
so here's
not in this one. This one was a phone call was coming in, but like I
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this is really interesting in that often, not always, but often a phone call in our dream is coming from a deeper place in our own psyche. And
Okay.
sometimes it's coming from, I mean, and I'll ask you this question. You don't have to answer it, but I'll ask you to think about it. What is the state of your spiritual life?
I mean, I have a complicated spiritual life because I grew up with a lot of religious trauma.
Okay.
It has improved since doing grief therapy.
Okay.
At least my relationship with like, my ancestors or like my ancestral dog or like with lamb, at least creating like a sense of connection with that. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
I struggle with organized religion, but
Many people do. Yeah.
but like I understand the like lens that I grew up with and like why I feel that way. I like recently gotten more into like the woo woo things because it's a little bit more comforting and it gives you an opportunity to connect
Yes.
with loved ones. And I think that's important. But like my spiritual life is like this is the first year where I've ever had any type of positive thought about it, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
oh
Because
wow. That's very important. I
I
think that
used to be, it wasn't until Lamb died that I had to kind of create that for myself.
wow. Now I think we're onto something here. The often the phone call in a dream or a message, a letter, a text, or like we're getting a message of some sort from a deeper place within ourselves, often that core place, which indeed is connected to that, to something greater than ourselves. If you want to think about our friends over in recovery and the 12-step movement, it the higher power within. So we could call it that.
Okay.
We could, yeah, we could call it the source of our life or the source of our being that is within us that really defies description. I mean,
Okay.
organized religion tries, but usually it falls short, you
Yeah.
know. But there is within us this core place that is connected to the divine, for want of a better term. And sometimes we get phone calls from that place.
Hmm.
I mean,
That's really
and
interesting that you say that because, like, literally, when I had that dream, I think that was the first time I had started to, like, kind of open my heart to kind of like to having more of like a spiritual life, or at least to like find that type of like spiritual connection because it's important in one's mental health, turns out. And so, yeah, no, you saying that is just, it's very interesting.
yeah. And I think, the name of the place, Hearts with Wings. Oh,
Mhm.
my word. I mean, just what you said about opening your heart, right?
Yeah.
So if I had to guess, this dream may be pointing to some kind of spiritual call, if you will.
Mm.
And I use that term because I don't have another term, but whatever process has been started since Lamb's death, that to continue it.
That's cool. I've done a couple like card readings and stuff like that, and so like that seems to be the general consensus of every reading I've done. So like that's pretty cool.
Well, here's your dream.
Yeah.
Just absolutely reinforcing that and validating that. So now going a little deeper, if that's okay with you.
Do it.
Okay, are we good? Do you have any questions or concerns about this at all?
No, I'm so fascinated,
Okay,
genuinely. So like
okay, okay.
let's go.
All right. So the 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 function of this is, as you said, euthanasia and for a pet. right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the word euthanasia, I think it has Greek roots, and with the EU meaning good, and the thanasia is death.
I didn't know that. That's really nice.
Yeah.
I
So
work
the
in
word,
animal care. I'm gonna say that to some people. That's very nice.
yeah, good death.
I think that's as close as I've come to crying so far. So
Yeah. And that's, and the purpose of this, especially with our dear, dear beloved dogs who cannot talk to us, but we're tuned into their pain, right? And their suffering. And the whole idea around this is to end suffering.
yes.
And I remember a veterinarian telling me that our dogs give us so much throughout their lifetime, and we owe them this.
Yes.
And we are responsible for it.
It is better a day too or a week too soon than a moment too late, is what we say where we are.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But what does this mean for you? And what I mean by that is, in dreams, death, any kind of reference to death is equals to change.
Okay.
In other words, death in dreams equals change.
Yeah.
And if this is referencing a good death, it may be referencing for you now a good change. A good change to end suffering. Now, I don't know where you're suffering, but it's possible that the dream is also calling you to a change of some sort in order to end suffering. And here's the deal. The purpose of suffering, that there is a purpose to suffering. And one of the purposes for suffering is, in fact, to call us to change.
Yes.
Okay.
And
two other purposes of suffering include to build empathy. If we suffer in some way, then if we suffer well, if you will, if we embrace our suffering in a way, then we are more empathetic to other people who have suffered the same thing we have suffered.
Yes.
Right? Like, you did this for Lamb and I had to do it for Ned. And so I have great empathy for what you had to do because I had to do it too. See, we both suffered in the end of our beloved dogs' lives. Okay. All right. So I don't know what change you're being called to, but it is to end suffering. The third reason for suffering, I think, is to remind us that we're not in charge of everything.
Yep.
That ego, right? Ego is not in charge of everything. So suffering does serve a purpose, and our work is to find the meaning in it, is to find that purpose, right? Okay. This is big stuff. Dreamer, are you tracking with me, or is this?
I'm tracking.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm tracking.
Do you have any questions or concerns, or do you have anything around this you want to say, or?
I think it's making sense. It really is.
Okay.
I mean, I'm still like the good death thing is like with the euthanasia is still like mind blowing to me. I think that's amazing. The change I've been experiencing, that change since the euthanasia. So that that really reads true. And like the change there through therapy, I have learned that there was a very hurting version of myself that existed before I got Lamb. And I think this whole grief process has kind of like made me more aware and more compassionate to that version of myself. And so there's a part of me that feels like that probably results, or like that change in the end is supposed to lessen the
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah.
We're still working through it. So excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Sure.
We're
Sure.
still in the, like, it's not a quick process, but
No.
yeah, I've been in a very it's been a very long transition, but I do think that in the end good things will come of it.
Well, I think that is a brilliant insight. So we're just gonna make that a brilliant insight, right? Because
Yeah.
this is what you're working on, right?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. How am I doing so far?
You're doing really great.
Okay, great. All right. Now, so this whole idea of euthanasia has come back up in this dream about this beloved part of yourself that as represented by lamb, all those things that we identified. And yet something's just and there's this feeling of anxiety around this, right? You get this call and it's
Mhm.
so puzzling, that it's there's like, what? A scientific package? What?
I was so confused. Like, I was confused and I was mad. I was like, how did I sign up for something I didn't know I signed up for? I thought I knew what I was signing up for. Like, it was like, yeah.
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 So,
It's like a scientific advancement package or something.
oh,
It was like,
okay.
and I was
Okay.
like frustrated too because they had given me ashes and it like made me like not sure of the contents of the ashes that they had given me, because then he came back and this that like I was frustrated
Right.
by the dream. It's just I'm still a little irritated.
Right. And you when you first told me, you said there was some anxiety.
The fear was that, like, they didn't say that he like had recovered from the tumor that was growing in his sinus, and so
Mhm.
like the anxiety was that like I was just gonna have to, like, if he was actually going to be him, that I would just have to have him euthanized again.
Oh gosh.
And
Yeah.
like that was the fear. And then so when I picked him up, there was like an element of relief that it wasn't him, but then I was like, oh God, what am I gonna do with him now?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't
Yeah.
him. Then I was like, we end this. This ain't the dream for us.
And I hear frustration, I hear anxiety, fear, have to do it again, but I also heard a moment of confusion.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I didn't know,
What it
because
was.
I
Yeah.
didn't know what this, like, what this version of lamb that they were gonna give me was. But it was
Oh,
never like, oh my goodness, like my dog's gonna come back and he's gonna be perfect. It was always just it was stress.
okay. So an interesting idea around confusion in a dream, any kind of momentary or maybe more than momentary thought of confusion in a dream is actually good news. I,
Okay.
I know, but
I like that because I get that a lot in dreams. So okay. Like,
okay. And the confusion and the reason might be a good thing is because it means that the ego realizes, if you will, that it's not in charge here. Confusion means the ego is in a place where change can take place.
that's nice.
If in the dream, the ego, the I in the dream thinks, "Oh, I know exactly what's going on all the time," then it, change is very difficult. But if there's a sort of confusion around this, then that means that there are some options opening up. So that may be a good thing. And then the other thing we look at in the feeling tone, and feeling tones are real important in dreams, is to think about where in waking life are you frustrated? Where in waking life is there anxiety or fear? And some of the anxiety or fear can be around the change that's happening,
Oh, there's a lot of anxiety and fear around that. Yeah, that makes
right.
sense. That reads really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do I have to do it again? Do I have to look at this stuff again? Do I have to, that kind of idea, or can I just go back to sleep and be the way I used to be? Because change sometimes feels like death to the ego. It just does. But it's,
I'm gonna rewatch this recording like a bunch of times after this. If that's some really great things. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
the ego does not change now.
Now, one other thing I want to say about the scientific advancement package is there's a couple of ways to think about that as well. First of all, the word advancement may indicate, yeah, you're making progress. You're making progress. Scientific, I mean, you tell me what scientific means to you. What does scientific mean?
It doesn't. Scientific just means that it's been like somebody with a doctorate or an education has touched it, or like in this terms, like in the terms of the dream, it was like they had the technology to bring him back to life. But like generally in life, if I say it's like scientific, I mean like it's like, factually based.
Okay. Yep.
Like,
yeah.
Like not up for early interpretation. It's like it's legitimate.
Right. Okay, good. There you go. I don't even know how to spell legitimate.
I don't either. I'm dyslexic, so
okay, well, that's close enough. Legitimate. But right, that there's and if I can add a word, that there is evidence, right? There's some kind of evidence for something.
Yeah.
The scientists want evidence. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, thinking about that and putting it together with the word advancement, it might be interesting to review. You said you were in therapy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might be interesting to review with your therapist the evidence of your advancement. Like,
okay.
Ask your therapist, how do you think we're doing? How do you think I'm doing? Where are we? Just have a review, which is a good idea to do. Anyway.
I think that's fair because I think I struggle with seeing my own accomplishments. So
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, Dreamer, are we on to something here?
We're on to something.
Okay. All right. Now, you pick up lamb, but it's not lamb.
Yeah.
It's the not lamb.
Okay. Like it was like it like I say zombie, it was somewhere between like zombie and like possession, but not necessarily from like an evil entity, just from like there was like a vacancy to him. Like there was no like spirit to him, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because like I felt that spirit go when he died.
Yeah. I wonder, and this is my supposition here. I wonder if this is the signal of the advancement, if you want to put it that way, of your grief. That your grief process is now coming to terms with this all the way.
I think that's fair.
Right? That, it's just that you're just coming to terms with that total realization, acceptance, if you will. There's an acceptance of this. And it takes a minute. I mean, it takes weeks. I think about Ned every day. I miss him every single day. He used to walk with me every day.
Yeah.
So to come to the deep down acceptance that this is so, you felt his spirit leave his body. I felt Ned's spirit leave his body. I know. But it takes a while for the deepest levels of psyche to come to terms with this.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that's what this is referring to. What Does that ring with you at all?
That makes a lot more sense than just me being like, why did my brain play that mean trick on me? So
Hmm.
that makes a lot
Yeah,
more sense.
yeah, yeah. It's, it's still sad. However,
But I
uh,
mean, some things are just sad.
yeah, yeah,
Like they're allowed to be sad.
yeah, exactly. Okay,
I'd do it a million times over. I really would.
right.
The
So
best
would
thing.
I. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
I I'm with you on that one. Okay. So I think that in addition to this being a grief dream, I think it's also bringing some things to your attention about your own advancement, your own, work with your own mental health, with your own spiritual life. And so the dream is speaking to you on several levels at the same time. Okay. So here's what I like to ask. Can you think of anything that you can do to honor this dream? What I mean by that is there something that you can make or draw or do, like a kind of a ritual to to thank the dream maker for the dream?
I mean, I think I could make some art for it. There was a color, like I get a lot of colors in dreams, and this dream
Okay.
had a yellow color to
Okay.
it.
Uh,
Had a yellow, like it's like a mustardy color.
okay. I'll take a- So what would you do with that color?
I mean, I could impose like I like the like idea of doing something opposite. Like I like a yellow lamb.
Like to draw something?
Yeah,
Or
to like
okay.
to draw something. I do a lot, like I like drawing.
So to draw something, is there anything else?
I think like the biggest way to honor that dream is to continue. It's kind of nice knowing that it's like a reminder that I'm doing the right thing and I'm like on the right path. So I think it's a good reminder to continue on working on myself. Um,
Hmm.
it's exhausting.
I,
Whoever says working
hon-
on yourself is easy and walking park, they're full of
honey, don't I know? Um,
it.
so continue your inner work is
Yeah.
basically what I just heard. I think that's brilliant. Okay, great.
Just
Um,
because like I think like the spiritual side of like my personality and stuff is like it's like hard territory to get through, but it's like definitely
yeah.
something that like I've had a lot of like progress in, I suppose. So
Hmm.
I think
So
continuing in that is important.
okay, excellent. Well done. All right. Now, you had indicated to me that you had a few dream questions you wanted to run past me.
Yeah, let me 1 second, because now that we're on the same device that has my questions on it, let me pull those up. Okay, so when I was a kid, I used to fly a lot in dreams. It
Mm-hmm.
was like a constant thing. It wasn't like I had wings. I would jump and I would fly. I used to have so much fun in my dreams. And so like I don't know. I don't fly in my like adult dreams, but it was like very much like part of my psyche that like I was gonna go to sleep and I was gonna get to fly around. Um
Okay.
so like I don't know if it's like necessarily like a question, more of like what the kids flying around in dreams mean when they're little.
Okay. I can take a stab at this because it can go a number of ways. It depends, of course, on you, the dreamer, and what was going on in your life. But for many folks, flying, whether you had it as a child or as an adult, flying has to do with, if you will, rising above,
Okay.
transcending
Okay.
something, to rise above something and to get a different perspective. So you're, instead of being on the ground, you're up here and you get a, a wider perspective. It to transcend, meaning if, often kids are going through a developmental stage, or if there's some strife in the household, For instance, the flying dreams give you a little bit of relief. They're uplifting.
That's fair.
If you are, if there's something sad or anxiety producing in waking life, the dream kind of picks you up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Is an attempt, it's compensatory, it's an attempt to balance you. On the other hand, the other side of this is that it can represent escape, not in a balancing way, but just I'm not facing that. I'm just gonna escape. I'm gonna avoid. And also, it's ungrounded. Don't have your feet on the ground. And we do need to have some flying around time, but we need to remember to come back to earth, so to speak, and to stay in reality. So that's my take on flying dreams.
Okay. Okay.
Real fast. Okay.
Okay. All right. And then the last question I guess I would have, if I had one more question opportunity,
Okay.
what about intoxicated dreams? I've had
Oh, yes.
dreams, like I get dreams where like I have a lot of chase dreams. I've got a lot of like, again, like nightmare realms. We love those. Yeah, how would you interpret those?
Okay. So a dream in which you are intoxicated.
Yeah, like I either get well, it's not normally like it's the dreams themselves. I won't necessarily know that I'm intoxicated until I like start falling or I start hurting myself. Sometimes
Yes.
too, a dream will be normal and then it will start to devolve and like reality will start to change in it. And then I found out that I've been drugged. Um,
Yes.
or something like that has happened. I'll
Oh,
also sometimes get like with like because I like had told you like I get text messages in dreams. A lot of the time, like if I go to look at my phone, I can't actually read it because like the words are going everywhere, and that's often like the beginning process of realizing that I have been drugged in these dreams.
okay. So one thing though that's really interesting about dreaming is that people seldom are able to read in dreams. And that's because the reading mechanism, the thing in our brains that enables us to look at words and decipher their meanings, that is offline. And so we can recognize a couple of words from time to time, but it's very rare to like be able to read a whole sentence or anything much more than that. Okay, so that's one thing. But intoxicated or feeling drugged. So again, it's a both and. There are two ways to look at this. To be intoxicated and feeling drugged has to do with not being in control, being out of control. Yeah. And so where does one feel out of control? Where does one feel like you've sort of lost your faculties and you can't stand on your own 2 feet? So there's that. However, there's more. So, if there is an issue with mind altering substances, it might be a comment on that, certainly.
There's
So,
never like I don't know. I guess there's never really been like an issue. I used to like I've like encountered like
yeah,
hallucinations and stuff like that, like, but it's never been like a chronic use issue. Most of the time in the dreams, though, it's like
okay,
it's not necessarily an intoxicant that I've taken either. It'll be like it's the loss of motor control, the like
okay,
butterfly effect, and then getting hurt repetitively is
okay.
what.
All right. So in that case, I would look at the loss of control part
Yeah.
and think, what is outside of my control in my waking life? And how is this hurting me? How have I given control over to someone else? Have I allowed some other entity to control me? And is it hurting me? It
Mhm.
might be a relationship. It might be in a work situation. What is, or where have I drunk the Kool-Aid, so to speak? If taken in a particular attitude or a particular stance in or a particular opinion in my waking life, and that has now gotten out of control and hurting
Mhm.
me, something along those lines, The other idea around this is, believe it or not, if it's a different kind of intoxicating experience, it can, if it's a pleasant intoxicating experience, like, you know, the first sip of really good champagne, for instance, if it's that kind of, then it is still pointing to a spiritual issue.
Okay.
But look at the word intoxicating. Inside the word intoxicating is the word toxic.
That's very fair.
Yeah. So what is toxic, and how is it affecting your control? You know, what's in your control, what's out of your control? These are great, you know, questions for anybody to ask themselves. So, all right.
I think that's
Now,
awesome. Yeah, that's amazing.
okay.
I can think about the times I've had those dreams and what I've been going through at that point, and that reads.
Okay. How was that experience overall of working the dreams?
That was amazing. That was amazing. Yeah.
Great. Great. I'm so glad you.
I actually do feel like a little bit relieved, not realizing that like it doesn't seem as terrible of a dream anymore. So thank you.
Oh, you're so very welcome. Dreamer, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. And I appreciate it so much. And, you know, I hope that our work together today is going to be informative to everybody who watches. So